Well, hey everyone. It is January the 1st, 2023. And I know most people, they put out their video yesterday or today, and it's all about saying goodbye to 2022 and saying hello to this more wonderful year. Of course, all we've done is we've just moved from one date on a calendar to another date. There's no reason at all why this day should have any different significance to yesterday, other than some calendar tells us we're supposed to, as opposed to if we were dealing with an actual astronomical event, a solstice or an equinox, because at least then you would have an actual marker date that is guaranteed every year and could be tracked by people. You wouldn't need a calendar at all. You would just need the right setup to track the sun and the stars, and you would have an exact day and an exact energetic structure. So obviously we are going through, again, that's all been taken. Another thing that's been taken away from us, the simplest thing of how to track time in this realm is taken away to an arbitrary calendar and supposedly having a celebration to move from one day that means nothing to another day that means nothing. It's just another example of the craziness of our reality that we've been set up to deal with. But I thought I would come out today just for a couple of small things for you. One I want to talk a bit about is the non-player character idea. And the reason I'm talking a bit more about it is I've mentioned it a few times in videos or interviews, and it's a work in progress. It's not like it's a concept that I've fully fleshed out all the information on, and I've got all the answers to this. No, it's something that many people are working on all at once, trying to use the metaphor to understand where we are. And I'm just in the process of doing that. And I noticed some comments to videos over the last several weeks that I thought were not, or at least I wasn't being clear at what I was trying to present. And of course, I wasn't clear either. So I'm going to make a few changes to that. So what I'm calling a non-player character, because it comes across as like a robot, and it's not really true, as I've come to learn to over time come to see this. I see what I would classify the difference between a non-player character and a human is that a non-player character has all of what we would call human traits. They have the same biological structure. They have the same DNA structure as a human. They have the same instinctual things. They have the same tissues, the same cells, the same atoms, the same molecules, similar thinking structures, it's all very similar. There's really not much of a difference between the non-player character and the human. The humans and the non-player characters, let me change that. When a fetus, I think, is first formed, we're all non-player characters. It doesn't matter, human or what eventually becomes non-player. We all start as non-player characters. Every single form in the realm comes in as a non-player character. The difference is certain of the non-player characters right in the womb are chosen for some reason for the divine spark. For the soul is going to hook into this particular human character. And as soon as the soul links into one of the characters, it gains an extra body. Meaning, we have several layers or several bodies, right? There's a material body, there's an etheric body, there's an astral body. Each one, as it goes down, much more dense, much more difficult, much more trapping. The soul, though, or a divine spark, adds an extra body that the non-player character will not get. It's like a secondary, what's the word I can use? Very deep, contemplative thinking mechanism. And I think so that's one part. The other part is by having the divine spark within. There's a secondary energy source. I think all the non-player characters, of course, come with an energy source. Everyone who's walking around that looks human is generating loosh. The system is getting getting stuff from them from just general suffering. Those that are human have two different things though. Because we have an extra energy battery, we produce more loosh. So by creating specialized suffering for the humans, for more humans, the ones that are actually human here, we're dealing with you're dealing with much more energy. Now that energy can be used for very powerful purposes. Now that doesn't mean that you could tell 1,000 people on the street, pool your energy together and something big's going to happen. No, because 950 of them are going to be non-player characters, and their energy is limited to biological functioning here, to just being a semi-sophisticated animal on planet Earth. I'm downplaying that, but I there's no really other way to say it. I'm not trying to belittle the non-player characters. They are fully functioning, fully thinking, fully operative people. It's just the humans who have this, the ones who become human, who have a divine spark within, there's a secondary source of power. There's a secondary philosophical questioning, critical thinking mechanism. Let's put it that way. And that doesn't mean humans will use it, but the possibility is there for the ones that are not NPCs to dig into questions on a much deeper level, to not just superficially demand an answer, how is this happening? And then just get an answer and move on. The human will keep bashing their head potentially, looking for more, looking for a better answer. It also means that the range, particularly the range of, and I mean this depth not in a good way, the range of depth in that the pain and suffering that the human divine spark goes through can be much more deep, much more painful, much more, and again, much more existential, because there's also there's this extra energy body, there's this extra, and it's a mental body. It's not emotional. This extra body is not in any kind of way dealing with feeling. It has nothing to do with your heart. It has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with any of these things, any of these concepts and these ideas. It's a connecting point to what's outside the matrix. That's what the one who is not a non-player character has. It has this, we have this energy structure. I say we, because I'm one of them. We have this energy structure that is that is a link to to what's outside, to the original father, what's outside the cave. The non-player character doesn't have that link, and so that means it is greatly hampered by the possibility of going into depth. But it also means that the non-player character won't go to they'll suffer and they'll be in pain and they will have psychological pain, but there are limits. There's limits to everywhere they can go. Not only is there limits to their philosophical seeking, limits to their critical attempts to understand reality and the self, there's limits to also how deep they will drop into despair, how deep they will drop into the ramifications of the suffering long term, if that makes sense. And again, this is just something I'm working my way through. It's going to take a long time potentially to fully grasp this entire mechanism. It's just starting to flesh itself out for me. Because it may have sounded like I was belittling non-player characters. That's really not true there. They're totally the same as the human, other than the divine spark is missing. So one extra energy body is missing and an extra energy source is missing. Everything else is exactly the same. Both can run a farm, both can build a car, both can fly an airplane, both can figure out very complex problems and find answers to them. Both can help somebody who's in difficulty that's they find on the streets, or there's the similarities are massive, but there's these little tiny parts that separate one from the other. And it's that additional part that is not just the recognition of what's different about us here. It's the thing that can lead to escaping the matrix, to leaving the matrix, leaving the cave. It also helps to explain why we can have a lot of friendships, but it seems like certain friendships have a different depth. There's certain people that we know, and even though it doesn't necessarily sometimes make sense, that it would make sense if two people have the exact same likes and interests, right? If two people have similar likes and interests, similar ways of being, similar personalities, that's who should bond. But it's not often the way it is, right? Sometimes someone you're really connected to well and you like spending time with is not necessarily similar. There's complete differences, but you still get along really, really well. And I think that has to do with human to human connection, true human to true human, these energy bodies, these deeper fields. You're able to converse about subjects. You're able to go into depth about subjects, areas that you can't go into with the non-player character. You can still have similar conversations, but you'll always notice depth is a really good word. There's a lack of depth at the end of that conversation. Well, the human person you've had the similar conversation with, the depth is there. You leave that interaction and really feel like you've had a soul encounter, if I can say it that way, that you don't get with the non-player character. There's something missing in that exchange. I've also started to think back, because I'm trying to track now. One of the things I'm doing is I'm tracking back people that I've known in my life, like really, really well, like people that I've spent large amounts of time with, have been friends. I've had lots of friends, of course, because I've moved so often. So I've had different friends in different parts of the world. So it's not like I've had the same group of 10 friends all my life. They've changed constantly. And I'm trying to look through the levels of the friends that I've had, the depth that those friendships took on, the can I tell the difference between someone I'm now classifying as a non-player character who I was a friend with and obviously had decent interactions and we enjoyed spending time, and someone who has this divine spark? How can I notice something different about my interaction with them than with the others? And I am starting to locate things like that. The same is with, and this is also something you can check. You can check that in your life. Go through and think about that. You can also think about those you've had relationships, right? Those you've dated. It's also similar because, again, there's just a natural deepening when you're sharing sexual activities with somebody. You start to notice whether a depth is there or it isn't there somehow in the overlay of what you do, what you talk about, how you interact with each other. And I think some of those things help to indicate, and it doesn't just mean, this one was human, this one's a non-player character, so because they're human, I have to have a great, perfect interaction with them. No, I mean, personalities are different, things are different, interests are different. You could be much more connected realistically to a non-player character if your personalities and certain aspects of your life connect better. But there just tends to be something different about there's certain individuals in my past that there's something different about the interaction with them compared to the others. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're tracking a bit of the difference between human and non-player character. I'm bringing that up because I think I think the numbers are. I had originally said we're maybe talking 20% human, 80% non-player character. I think the numbers are much lower. In fact, the most I would give now is 5%, and I think it's much lower than that, which is still a lot. I mean, if you say, well, 5%, that can't be. But 5% of 8 billion is 400 million. That's still a massive number in this realm, right? It's still a huge number of potential human to human interactions that you can have. And I would assume, even though, like, if you have a city of 1 million people, that would put at 5%, that would put 50,000 human people in a 1 million city. It means 950,000 aren't. They're just regular humans, I guess, compared to, I don't know. I need a different term than non-player character. I need a different name because they're human, right? But then they're not robots. They're not like computer generated characters necessarily. The way I might have said that they're just they're exactly like us, but missing one element. That's all. It's like one. If you had a chain of chemical compounds, there'd just be one compound that's missing. That's all. Um, but even at 5% of a 1 million city, you've got 50,000 people there. So in the 50,000 people, and I think there would be, you would just naturally gravitate if there was 20 people in a room, you would gravitate to the one or two that are human for some reason. So I think human friendships build more likely. If the natural tendency would be 5 out of 100 of people that or the human. But I think it's different. I think just the way humans would feel interacting with each other, the number might be quite different. It might be 20 or 25% of our people that we classify as people we know and spend time with for one reason or another. The percentage is much higher because the bonding was easier. The bonding somehow happened. You didn't have to have a perfect interaction. This divine spark recognized the divine spark in the other, and that kind of overcomes some of the things that might normally cause friction between you and one of these. I'll use NPC for now, but we'll come up with a better. If you can come up with a better term for me in the comments, that would be great. If you can find another name that indicates these the people who exist here but are missing this one spark, this one body, this one yeah. So we'll come up with a better name for it. I think you interact more clearly with them than you do with others, so you more naturally gravitate to having more friends. But that's just I'm working on this, right? I'm working on this, and so it's part of a lot of this came out of these new ideas came out. I've been watching The Good Place, the TV show that was out about 4 years ago, and the first season was quite a good presentation of some concepts. Not a lot, but a couple of key concepts that I've been able to extrapolate into some giant, massive understandings of the realm. And it's going to be quite a while. This NPC thing it's a minor piece of this giant package that I got from the first season watching the show. And it's going to take some time to work through all that and test it and figure out what parts do I have pretty correct, what parts am I completely off, what parts do I have pieces of that need more further refinement. But some pretty huge, to me anyway, reveals of the structure of this place was put forth in season 1. And season 1 of the show was okay. It was the writing was not bad, the acting was not bad. It was okay. I wouldn't consider it to be spectacular. It's not like, it wasn't like watching Seinfeld or Cheers or something, but it was okay. And then it went to season 2, and I was kind of looking forward to, okay, let's see where they go with this now. And the season 2 just diminished into terrible writing. First of all, like just awful. Like the plots are awful. The dialogue. I mean, remember, I'm a writer. I've been a script writer. I've been a comedian. I wrote for television, so I understand how the package is supposed to work. And it was like 10-year-olds were writing the script. It was so juvenile and so yet the dialogue specifically was so bad. It was it's like, how could there have been a writing team putting this together, especially when you had this really interesting idea and potential reveals in season 1, and it just blew up on itself. And I've watched the first few episodes of season 3, and it's worse. I mean, I'm not even sure I can get through the whole series. Like, it's actually the quality of it, and I can even tell the actors are kind of getting bored. Other than Ted Danson. Ted Danson is he's just a quality actor, so he has the same level of energy, but I'm noticing that even the energy of the actors is dropping. They're having trouble. They're having trouble dealing with, I think, the whole package of what's there, which is disappointing because I think it was a great idea for a show. It was a great idea, especially if you wanted to reveal some real truths of reality. this was a great format, and it's just been after the first reveal of the first season of these ideas that came through. It's like I say, it's just been tough slogging, but some of the things I've got from it are quite good, quite good, and they will go into where the research is going right now. They're taking they're taking me in particular. So I'm very grateful for what was there and what I got out of it, and what sort of revelations about the structure of reality has been. So too again has been a second reading, and I'm going through Can You Stand the Truth? Just a spectacular book. I really didn't read the middle section too carefully, sort of the formation of matter, and you might say humans' descent into matter from the astral realm. It's and again, I'm not saying I agree 100% with everything she's saying yet, but it's quite an interesting presentation. It's quite an interesting uh, package she's putting together to explain what we're doing here, and specifically how the whole material realm is a trapping mechanism itself, that matter itself. And as soon as we entered a physical body, were locked in some cases. So really, really interesting reading that I'm getting through. I guess a little more than halfway through my second read of the book, and that's coming along. So that's where that is. I've got a bunch of more interviews coming up this January. A couple of ones I'm really actually looking forward to, with some people that I've been surprisingly came across to ask for an interview, and I'm really looking forward to some of them. But hopefully, they're all going to be interesting and useful, and they will appear on my interviews page as we go along. Um, yeah, 2023. What do you say? Right? What do you say about this? Normally, when you enter this calendar change, when you take one calendar down, you put the new one up, and you have this New Year's Eve celebration, and oh, it's going to be wishing you a good year. Oh, good things are going to happen. Things are going to change. This has got the potential to be one crazy, wacky year. Theoretically, a 10% possibility that a whole bunch of non-player characters. Remember, non-player characters are not robots, and I don't want to get this thought through. They're fully functioning, thinking humans. They have limits. They have particular limits to, you might say, how far the edges of stuff they can go. If enough non-player characters demand that clown world make some changes here, then there's enough that changes could have to happen. But so many will have to demand that. So many will have to cross that line that I'd be very surprised that's going to happen, given the likelihood of the difficulties that are going to be thrown at us in 2023. This is going to be I think the last 3 years are going to be nothing compared to how this one's going to potentially play out on us, and we have to be ready for that mentally. No, I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not going to say this is going to happen, this isn't going to happen. That's just generally a whole load of crap that people are throwing out there, other than you can get a feeling energetically of how the year is going to play out, how things are going to go, what's possibly coming along. And you just have that sense that this is going to be a rough ride. And so if there isn't a lot of changes by these things, by the group that it doesn't have the divine spark in them, if they're the ones that don't demand a lot of change to happen in huge ways, in very fast moving ways, it's going to be a tough year. But hopefully then that we use that one way or another for our understanding. I'm going to keep following my research, seeing where it takes me, seeing what I can reveal about this place, about this, how this has been put together and why it's been put together, and the best way to use our divine inner power and our divine spark to reunite reunite with what we're supposed to reunite with. We've been fooled into reuniting with matter. We've been fooled into feeling that the emptiness we feel inside, which is that's a part of the human condition, emptiness. We feel the emptiness not because we're empty. This is another mistake I think that Zen makes, or any of the Buddhism, or any of the traditions of the world. And I'm not just saying the Asian ones, right? The Western ones have this, in the native cultures and whatever. This idea that we are a void, or we are truly an emptiness. This is very Advaita, very sort of modern spiritual thinking. It's true to a point. There is an emptiness within, but that's not our emptiness. Isn't our nature. Fullness is our nature. The fact that we are noticing emptiness means that symbolically we're split. That what we are supposed to be as a total whole has been split by coming into the realm of the tree of good and evil, the tree of duality, right? The world of duality. We also got split. Half of us stayed outside the cave, and half of us came in. Those of us that are in matter, we're half of a being. We're not a complete being, we're half a being. And this emptiness, we feel it. And we have just been trained from the moment we've been born, from the moment we've been incarnating in this, from long before we're even in matter. We have been conditioned to go find the cure for our emptiness in material things, or material objects, or material people, or material experiences, or material anything. And of course, the true connection, the true fusing together will never happen in matter. It will never happen in the astral realm. It will never happen in the cave. It will happen when the part of us that was in the cave reconnects again with the part of us that was out of the cave. Right? That's the kind of the secret of what we're trying to do here, I think. And we'll just keep going forward and seeing what can be presented to that. Okay, I've rolled along for 27 minutes. It's January the 1st. I've got some sunshine finally in the midst of all the snow. I should get outside and get some fresh air. A bunch of interviews coming over the next few weeks. I'll let you know as those go along. Thanks for the book purchases. Thanks for supporting the channel. Still figuring out the best way to create an audiobook, working on that. And I'll come join you guys in like a week or so and see if something new has come up. If anybody has a new name for what we've been calling NPCs up to this point, given my revised presentation, if you have a new name, that would be fantastic. I would love to have a brand new name for humans that are just one spark less, one body less, than no different than that. So if you got a name for that, let me know. Thanks again for popping over. Yeah, buying the books, supporting this project and this research. It's, as an author, that's how you say thanks to an author. You purchase their books, and that's the way we not only have the resources to continue, but we have the feeling that there's people out there that like what we're doing, and so it encourages us to keep going. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.